Interesting figures and voices indeed, Georgi. Yeah. Let me proceed then with the story of Sarajishvili. It is definitely one of the most renowned and old brands in Georgia. We're speaking of a man who practically created Georgia's business history. In 1984, Davit Sarajishvili already had opened cognac factories in Yerevan, Moscow, St. Petersburg, Kiev, Warsaw, Riga, Baku. And then since the 90s, he expanded his business to the rest of the world, and till this day continues to be competitive in its segment, not only in Georgia, but worldwide as well. Here is the story that the checkpoints pulled together for you.
Déjà 2 sur 3.
Pourquoi tu penses ça?
Elle appartenait à ma mère. J'en sais rien. J'ai jamais vraiment cru. Je veux dire, j'ai jamais vraiment cru à un monde meilleur que celui-ci. Qu'est-ce qui peut être meilleur?
Impressive stories are created by great people. Those who have enough intellect and courage not to be satisfied with what they have. So here we are to present the story of a great person and unpack a great Georgian business history of Sarajishvili.
In the era when Georgia as a state had disappeared from the world map for 200 years, and it seemed like Russia had destroyed everything Georgian, there were people who, in addition to social cultural values, created the history of Georgian business. Among them was visionary Davit Sarajishvili, who was decades ahead of his time. Sarajishvili inherited a relatively rich legacy and was able to make a living for the rest of his life. However, his irresistible desire to learn new things made him the person worth praising. Davit Sarajishvili's father, Zakaria, believed that the best thing he could give his son was education. Before entering school, Davit received his education at home. He then joined the first gymnasium, which was later assisted regularly by an already successful entrepreneur. After high school, Davit continued his studies in St. Petersburg, but after 1 year he moved to Germany, where he received a doctorate in chemistry and philosophy.
When he went abroad to study, his parents motivated him to think about how he could benefit his country. Sarajishvili kept this mindset for a long time. A young man who only knew dry wine and cha-cha from his homeland suddenly found himself in the middle of Europe. He discovered a wide range of alcoholic drinks. Knowing that Georgia has a variety of fruits and grapes, Sarajishvili thought that the development of this field in Georgia would be profitable. He began to explore different alcohol drinks and discovered that in this wide assortment, only cognac was a grape product. So he began to study cognac in more depth.
To achieve the same, he went to France and studied winemaking for 2.5 years. The acquired knowledge enabled him to establish cognac production. In 1884, Sarajishvili opened the first cognac factory on Belinsky Street in Tbilisi. In 1888 to 1889, he produced the first products. He was well aware that a country's independence required the development of local production. He was personally involved in every step of cognac making. By the end of the century, about 50 types of cognac were produced. At the same time, production expanded and factories opened in Yerevan and Baku. The drinks made from local grapes was placed in oak barrels, which give a unique flavor to the cognac. The work brought results, and the production soon made a name for itself, making Sarajishvili cognac known and appreciated everywhere. When Sarajishvili was starting to produce cognac, competing with low-quality but widely popular French cognac was difficult, especially considering that the means of communication were highly underdeveloped at the time. It was at this time, with Sarajishvili's support, that a viral cognac campaign began. In February 1945, Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill, members of the Big Three, attended the Yalta Conference. They were among the first to taste Sarajishvili cognac. During the tasting, Churchill praised Georgian cognac and was amazed by its taste. He thought that French specialists were working on cognac in Georgia and was surprised to find out that at the time, no foreigners worked at the Tbilisi cognac factory. This is how Georgian cognac started to become more popular in the world. During this period, the factory sold 400,000 manats worth of liquor and 150,000 manats worth of alcohol. If in 1895 the annual income of the cognac factory was 35,000 rubles, by 1903 it had increased to 981,700 rubles. After the death of Davit Sarajishvili in 1911, the factory was headed by his wife, Ekaterina Porakishvili, who continued to manage successfully and promoted the development of cognac production in Georgia. During the communist period, Davit Sarajishvili Cognac Factory became state-owned and was renamed the Tbilisi Cognac Factory.
Of course, we were affected by that horrible strike law on alcohol, and the company stopped operations while Sarajishvili's name was banned altogether as capitalist. Therefore, the factory was transferred to state ownership and was renamed the Tbilisi Cognac Factory. In 1994, the ownership was changed and the factory was transformed into a joint stock company, and the control stake was bought by Georgian businessman Elguja Bubuteishvili, who correctly defined the policy of the factory and the field.
In 1994, the company was transferred to a private owner and regained the name Sarajishvili. Davit Sarajishvili's qualities and initiatives as a manager were revolutionary. For the first time in the country's history, he initiated a paid leave and introduced an 8-hour working day. He set up a cafeteria for his employees, opened a library and a reading room. But perhaps most importantly, Sarajishvili wrote a will in which he stated that the proceeds from factories were to be used for the welfare of the workers. Thanks to the centuries-old tradition, experience, professionalism, diversity, and the latest technologies, Sarajishvili House continues the path to which Davit Sarajishvili has dedicated his whole life. Sarajishvili House has gained recognition in both local and international markets. Today, the company exports products to 20 countries on 4 continents. The constant creative search, love of work, and desire to move forward created the best Georgian alcohol brand in the country, Sarajishvili House.